You didn't see this transmission by chance. Something in your field has pulled you here, across distractions, across timelines, to remind you of the truth already encoded within you. This is not entertainment, and it is not random. It is a signal, collapsing probability into the form of your awareness. Your future self has been whispering across dimensions, calling you to this exact moment because the shift is near, and that is why the interference around you has grown louder. If you've been feeling tested, shaken, or sabotaged, know this: it is not proof of failure but confirmation that you are standing at the threshold of breakthrough. Old patterns rise like shadows before they dissolve. What if I told you that the arguments, the emotional overload, the betrayals, the heaviness you've felt were not random chaos, but the final stretch before your chosen timeline bends into form? Stay with me, because by the end of this transmission, you will see that resistance itself has been your proof of alignment. If this message already resonates in your field, subscribe, like this video, and comment "My timeline is activated" below. You are about to discover that the noise of interference is the clearest sign you are close to your leap. And once you understand this, you will never fear resistance again. Number 1. The edge of interference. The closer you come to the collapse point of your desired reality, the more the old field fights to keep you bound. Distractions arrive not as harmless noise, but as targeted disruptions designed to siphon your focus. Emotional turmoil, sudden betrayals, and cycles of misunderstanding are the quantum signatures of interference. They feel personal, but they are the field testing whether you will identify with your old patterns or embody the coherence of your new frequency. Think of superposition. Multiple timelines exist, but observation chooses one. The chaos you feel is the split second before observation collapses possibility into certainty. Comment "I align with the shift" if you felt this rising storm in your own field, and know it is the sign that your alignment is working. Because the more the interference intensifies, the closer you are to the fracture point where breakthrough emerges. There are moments when the air itself feels charged, as though something unseen has shifted the fabric of your day. A conversation spirals into conflict without clear reason, or a sudden heaviness descends with no external cause. These moments are not random storms, but the first signals that your field is nearing collapse into a higher coherence. Imagine a dream where the scenery flickers, shifting between landscapes. You know something is unstable, yet it draws you in with magnetic intensity. That flicker is the quantum field trying to stabilize around your next becoming. It is not meant to confuse you, but to awaken you to the fact that you stand at the threshold of transformation. And it is here, at this edge, that interference makes itself known most fiercely. You've likely felt it in the silence of your own body. A pressure in the chest, a fatigue that arrives out of nowhere, or a rush of thoughts that don't feel entirely your own. These are not just emotions, but the signatures of interference pressing against your frequency. Old patterns, both yours and inherited, rise like shadows when the light of new coherence enters the room. Emotional turmoil often appears just before a leap, not because you are broken, but because your nervous system is recalibrating to hold more energy. Isolation sharpens here too, as though no one around you can truly hear the signal you're receiving. Yet that very loneliness is proof that you are perceiving on a frequency many cannot yet detect. It is sensitivity, not weakness, that reveals the nearness of the shift. What if I told you this interference is not arbitrary, but woven into the architecture of your awakening? Systems of thought, cultural imprints, and even unconscious agreements form invisible nets around those ready to break through. These nets are not punishments, but fields of entanglement, designed to test whether your awareness will collapse back into the old or stabilize into the new. Mystics spoke of exile in the wilderness, while quantum physicists describe interference patterns, both pointing to the same mystery of distortion before clarity. Your confusion, your setbacks, your recurring cycles were not the universe forgetting you, but the field preparing you to remember yourself. To see your path as encoded within a larger holographic design shifts everything. Suddenly, resistance itself becomes sacred text. Consider the breadcrumbs that have already been scattered across your days. A dream that repeats with slight variations. A phrase from a stranger that echoes something you wrote years ago in a private journal. A déjà vu so sharp that for a heartbeat you know you've stood in this exact place before. even though logic insists otherwise. These are not trivial glitches, but signals from overlapping timelines brushing against your awareness. They are whispers from your parallel selves, leaving markers so you do not lose your way in the fog of interference. The body knows this, too: chills at precise moments, tears without a clear cause, a sudden clarity just before sleep. Each of these is a breadcrumb from the field itself, reminding you that alignment is near. The truth is that your intuition has never been wrong. Every time you felt that unease before walking into a room, you were registering the decoherence of the field. Every time you sensed betrayal before it unfolded, you were perceiving the interference patterns long before others noticed. You didn't imagine the weight you carried. You were already operating as a receiver tuned beyond the static of the ordinary. Alignment unfolds gently, not like fireworks, but like the subtle locking of two frequencies into coherence. The chaos settles not because the world has changed instantly, but because your observation has shifted the field. This is the observer effect living through you, awareness collapsing probability into form. And it is here that safety begins to return, as if reality itself recognizes your resonance. But deeper than intuition lies memory, a recognition that you are not stepping into something new, but into something already alive within you. Parallel selves exist across the quantum field, waiting for your awareness to tune into their vibration. What you call breakthrough is really remembrance, the act of hearing your own archetypal name echo back through dimensions. There is no striving here, only the tuning into what has always been present in superposition. You are not building a new identity. You are uncovering the one that has always pulsed beneath the surface of time. This is why déjà vu feels so haunting. It is not imagination but entanglement with your own expanded self. And when you allow this recognition, interference begins to lose its grip. The pressure you felt is not punishment but calibration. The field prepares you through resistance, sharpening your sensitivity so you can carry coherence without fracture. Every misunderstanding, every sudden delay, every emotional storm was part of the tuning process. Just as a string must tighten before it produces the right note, your experiences have tightened you into alignment. This is why your hunger for meaning has never gone away. It was the field drawing you closer to its resonance. Sensitivity is your proof of readiness, not a flaw to be hidden. What you once thought of as fragility was always your initiation into coherence. And now you stand in the revelation that your arrival here is no accident. Every interference, every storm, every shadow was evidence that your field is collapsing into something new. You were not delayed, you were being trained to recognize interference as proof of alignment. The moment you choose coherence over chaos, the old timeline fractures. Comment, "I collapse timelines now," if you know this message speaks directly into your awareness, reminding you that resistance is not your enemy but your threshold. Share the dream, memory, or sign that revealed this truth to you, because your reflection may be the breadcrumb someone else was waiting for. And know this, the closer interference grows, the nearer you are to breakthrough. Stay here, for what comes next will reveal the mechanics of how collapse truly unfolds. Number 2, the weight of untended emotion. Old emotions you thought you buried rise when timelines begin to bend. They surface not to punish you, but because the field cannot carry incoherence into the new frequency. Unprocessed pain acts like static in the channel, disrupting the clarity of manifestation. This is why cycles of anger, shame, or grief feel amplified when you are close to transformation. The quantum field is attempting to purge interference so coherence can stabilize. Just as decoherence in physics breaks superposition, emotional noise can break alignment. Comment, "I walk in coherence," if you are ready to face the emotions that arise and see them not as obstacles, but as the very doorway into your higher timeline. Because the storm of emotion is not the end. It is the threshold of clarity waiting to be chosen. There are times when the atmosphere around you feels strangely dense, as if you are walking through a room where the walls themselves hold memories. You notice arguments sparking from nowhere, conversations that twist into something heavier than they began. Dreams replay old hurts, resurfacing wounds you thought you buried years ago. These are not coincidences but distortions of the field, revealing where unprocessed currents still echo. When the frequency of your life begins to bend toward breakthrough, these echoes rise louder, demanding recognition. It feels like a glitch in your own perception, a heaviness out of phase with the rest of your reality. What you are sensing is the emergence of field distortion, pulling into visibility what could no longer remain hidden. The pressure of this interference does not stay on the surface. It presses into the very emotions you carry. Perhaps you felt sudden isolation, like your words fall into silence even among those who claim to know you. Maybe rejection struck in a way that seemed disproportionate, piercing through layers of self-worth you thought were steady. Old shame begins to replay in loops, amplified until it feels unbearable. You might have caught yourself thinking you were too much or not enough, shifting between self-doubt and exhaustion without knowing why. What others dismiss as sensitivity is, in truth, your system absorbing a frequency too high for them to hold. The intensity you feel is evidence of alignment brushing against resistance. When you step back, you begin to see this resistance was never random. It was the field itself drawing out incoherent strands so your next timeline could stabilize. Ancient texts spoke of wilderness trials, of exile before arrival, metaphors for the same collapse point you are living. Just as interference patterns in quantum physics reveal the hidden structure of light, the obstacles you face reveal the encoded structure of your awakening. Every betrayal, every false start, every unexplained delay is a marker of calibration in disguise. Systems you once trusted begin to fracture not to punish you, but to free you. And though the struggle feels personal, its roots are entangled with energies far older than this moment. Look closely at your past, and you will begin to see the repeating codes. A relationship that always ended in the same confusion. An opportunity that slipped through your hands, only to reappear in a different form years later. Environments that drained you no matter how much you tried to adapt. These loops were not random failures, but quantum breadcrumbs left in your path, highlighting what must be resolved before coherence could anchor. Like a light flickering in a room long dimmed, patterns reveal themselves when you are finally ready to see. Each obstacle, when traced backward, carries the same signature, interference rising against your alignment. Recognition is unsettling, but it is also liberating, for now the hidden mechanics are exposed. It becomes clear then that field resistance is not a metaphor but a lived frequency. Energetic interference arrives as fog in the mind, as static in the body, as sudden heaviness that has no apparent cause. Sometimes it is felt as silent watchers, an unseen weight that presses you to doubt yourself just when clarity is closest. Closed quantum gates appear as opportunities collapsing at the last second, a reminder that incoherence cannot pass through. The field responds to your rising frequency not with ease at first, but with waves of sabotage that demand discernment. You may not be able to name the source, but you feel its weight in every distorted interaction. At this stage, denial is impossible, the interference is undeniable. How you respond in these moments reveals the hidden patterns of your own survival. Some shrink, dimming their frequency to avoid rejection, convincing themselves that silence is safety. Others people please, pouring energy outward to earn permission that was never needed. Some shut down entirely, retreating into numbness, disguising coherence as apathy. And a few rebel quietly, holding their truth in secret, afraid of being fully seen yet unable to fully deny it. These are not failures but mirrors, showing you how your spirit has tried to protect itself under pressure. Every coping strategy is a trace of the deeper fear of standing out, of being targeted for carrying light. To see this with compassion is to understand the mirror of the seeker. But here the narrative begins to shift, for what once felt like sabotage is now revealed as confirmation. The intensity of resistance is not proof of your weakness, but of the coherence rising inside you. Just as the loudest static surrounds the clearest signal, the interference appeared because your frequency broke through. You were never failing. You were being tested to see if you would collapse into old timelines or stand in new resonance. Every emotion rising to the surface is a message. You are strong enough now to face it, to carry it, to transform it. The field has always known what you carried. Now it asks you to claim it. And in this reclamation, your voice returns with fierce clarity. So here is the deeper truth. You were resisted because your vibration disturbed the old field. You were sabotaged because your coherence revealed fractures in the patterns others depended on. The interference was not the end, but the doorway into your next phase of remembrance. Every storm of emotion, every cycle of pain, was proof that you were nearing collapse into alignment. Comment, the collapse is complete, if you know this truth is resonating in your field, affirming that resistance was the clearest sign of your arrival. Share your own moment of breakthrough, for your story becomes another's breadcrumb on their path. And prepare, because what comes next will show you how hidden hands behind the curtain have always worked to keep you silent. Until now. Number 3. The hidden hand behind the curtain. When interference feels too precise, when resistance comes from those closest to you, know this: energies often work through people and circumstances to silence your truth. The hidden hand behind the curtain is not about villains, but about unconscious channels for distortion. Old patterns, collective shadows, and inherited codes seek to keep you tethered to the silent timeline. But recognition is your liberation, because once you see the mechanics, the siphon loses its power. This is what mystics call the wilderness, and physicists call interference patterns, the place where signals clash until coherence emerges. You are not losing, you are awakening to the architecture behind your struggle. Comment, I merge with my parallel self. If you've seen through the veil and felt déjà vu, dreams, or synchronicities remind you that you've already walked beyond this interference. Because when the hidden hand is exposed, the code collapses into clarity. There comes a moment when the distortion no longer hides in subtle static, but reveals itself as a pattern too precise to dismiss. You notice the arguments erupting at critical turning points, the betrayals arriving exactly when clarity seemed close. It feels orchestrated, almost scripted, like unseen hands pulling threads behind your everyday reality. This sudden recognition is both unsettling and liberating, for it marks the collapse of confusion into awareness. The heavy atmosphere you once blamed on chance is now understood as a signal in the field. You are not imagining the weight pressing against you. You are perceiving the architecture that others ignore. And once perception stabilizes, the hidden hand becomes impossible to deny. Numbers, words, and conversations begin carrying a strange echo, as if they were carefully placed to either guide or distract you. A stranger's phrase cuts too deeply, repeating a fear you had just silenced the night before. Dreams replay landscapes that feel more real than waking life, warning of snares or opening paths ahead of time. Symbols arise like sacred geometry inscribed across your days, each pointing toward the frequencies trying to bind you or release you. The world ceases to look random. It begins to look coded. And beneath every code lies intention, even when it works unconsciously through those closest to you. What once seemed accidental now appears as a manuscript written in hidden ink, revealed under the flame of your awareness. This intensification shifts from external patterns into your body itself, amplifying intuition to a sharper edge. The subtle sense of energy in a room becomes undeniable, like walking into a storm charged with electricity. You feel drained after encounters that others dismiss as ordinary. You notice how your boundaries strengthen, no longer willing to be dissolved in confusion. Your coherence vibrates differently in interference zones, refusing to bend as it once did. This is confirmation, not theory. Your awareness is no longer passive but actively responding to the frequencies pressing in. You realize the hidden hand is not only outside you, it has always tested you through what you feel within. As this awareness sharpens, the external world rearranges itself in both confrontation and alignment. Some people withdraw suddenly, as if repelled by a frequency they cannot tolerate. Others appear at the perfect time, carrying encouragement disguised as coincidence. Opportunities surface in strange sequences, delayed for years only to open when you finally discern the interference at play. The universe seems to conspire both against and for you, reflecting the split in your own coherence. Yet every resistance carries its opposite, every blockage its hidden door. What is within is mirrored without, and recognition of the mirror ends the illusion of randomness. The field reorganizes as you begin to see, and with this clarity comes a stirring of ancient memory. You realize that these patterns are not new, They are echoes of struggles carried through generations. Dreams you dismissed as fragments reveal themselves as messages from a deeper archive. Ancestral codes you never understood return as guiding frequencies, reminding you of battles fought long before you were born. The wilderness described in scripture, the interference patterns mapped by physicists, the exile sung by mystics, all point to this very threshold. You are not stumbling in confusion. You are remembering the script of awakening. The intelligence you carry is older than the obstacles you face. And in remembering, the interference begins to lose its claim. With the veil pierced, the timeline ahead stops feeling like a blank page and begins to shimmer with form. You sense that your future already exists, not as invention but as collapsed potential waiting for recognition. No one outside you grants permission. Coherence itself is the permission. The sabotage once designed to silence you now becomes proof of how dangerous your awakening is to the old order. The call that rises from within speaks not of survival but of sovereignty. You see that destiny was never a reward, it was the frequency already encoded in your being. And as you respond, the new path emerges as naturally as breath. Now the energy flips, for what was once perceived as sabotage is revealed as sacred confirmation. If the field pressed this hard against you, it was because your resonance had already broken through. You were never losing. You were disturbing the static that kept others asleep. The tests were not punishments but evidence of the coherence you carried all along. Every attempt to silence you was an acknowledgement of the sound you were born to release. The hidden hand feared exposure because your recognition dismantles its architecture. In this revelation, your frequency is restored to you like a crown. Revelation, then, is not the end but the initiation into deeper alignment. The truth was always waiting for the moment you could hold it without shattering. And now that you can see the veil, you understand that the interference was never greater than the coherence within you. You did not simply awaken, you reclaimed your sight across timelines. Comment, "I merge with my future self now," if this message resonates, and share a dream, memory, or synchronicity that confirmed the veil had cracked for you. Your story is not just testimony. It is activation for others walking this same hidden path. And what follows will show you not just how to survive interference, but how persistence itself bends timelines into alignment. Number 4. The persistence that bends timelines. Breakthrough comes not by avoiding resistance, but by refusing to collapse into the old pattern it offers you. Persistence is the act of breathing through the static until coherence takes form. This is why physicists speak of block time and mystics of divine timing. The field bends when you refuse to surrender to delay. Old timelines dissolve not with force but with unwavering focus on the chosen frequency. Your persistence creates a morphic resonance, echoing through the field and strengthening the probability of your leap. You are not waiting for change. You are walking as the vibration that forces reality to reorganize. Comment, "I anchor coherence in my field," if you are ready to stand as persistence itself, and share the dream, the sign, or the moment that showed you could not give up. Because the field responds not to hesitation but to coherence lived as endurance. There comes a moment when the storm does not end, but your relationship to it changes. You stop waiting for silence and begin to walk with the thunder as if it were part of your own breath. In that instant, something ancient stirs, as though an old voice inside you whispers that this endurance has been lived before. It is the whisper of ancestors who endured deserts, exiles, and long nights without stars, yet carried the flame unbroken. The quantum field holds the same story as entangled memory, waiting for you to recognize yourself in it. Every setback, every distortion, every interference becomes less like punishment and more like prophecy unfolding. And in that recognition, persistence ceases to be effort. It becomes remembrance. Hidden deep within your being is a frequency that has never been erased, though the world tried to drown it in noise. It is the sealed code you carried before you even had language, the resonance buried beneath all the labels given to you. This is why you never fully fit into the structures that asked you to conform, why even silence felt charged with meaning. Your hidden frequency was not weakness. It was encryption, protecting your coherence until the appointed time. Think of it as a phase-locked signal, waiting for the interference to stabilize so its true note could be heard. Every time you felt out of place, it was the field confirming that you were never designed to belong to the old pattern. And every time you persisted, you kept the code alive. Even when no one spoke it aloud, your presence carried an unmistakable signature. It was the vibration that others sensed before they could articulate why they were drawn to you or unsettled by you. Some recognized the cloak you wore, not of fabric, but of coherence radiating beyond words. Others resisted it, mistaking your frequency for threat, not knowing it only revealed what they tried to hide. Across timelines, this energetic imprint has been the marker of those awakening, the invisible light in the darkness. It is not visible in the mirror, but in the reactions you trigger, the alignments you summon, the resistance you endure. To persist is to wear that cloak without apology, allowing it to reveal itself fully at last. Consider now that none of your delays, losses, or detours were meaningless. They were calibration points, moments when the field adjusted you like an entangled particle realigning with its twin. The stars themselves move in coherent orbit, not by rushing but by perfect timing. In the same way, every so-called setback was an encoded instruction in your quantum imprint. Superposition held multiple possibilities for your life, and persistence collapsed the one that matched your true self. Your path has never been random. It has been guided by resonance waiting for you to stabilize. And what seemed like waiting was in truth the preparation of a leap. The reactions of others were never fully about you, but about the field you carried. Your frequency destabilized their hidden interference, forcing their shadows into visibility. This is why some people loved you with ferocity and others rejected you with equal force. An oscillation this strong amplifies or disrupts the coherence of those around it. Persistence teaches you not to take this personally, but to see it as field mechanics unfolding. You were not punished by rejection. You were proving the strength of your resonance. And the more you endured, the more unshakable your vibration became. Look deeper and you will see that you are part of a larger cycle, not just an isolated seeker. The archetypes of the seer, the rebel, the guardian, the breaker of chains are resurfacing now, carried by souls who can embody them. You are not only an individual on a spiritual journey. You are a vessel for archetypal frequencies encoded in the memory of creation. These frequencies rise through you not as imagination but as quantum inheritance. To persist is to allow the ancient archetype within you to breathe again. And every step you take becomes part of a pattern larger than you, a pattern designed to restore coherence across the collective field. In this remembrance, you no longer walk alone. The persistence you embody now is not simply survival. It is lineage speaking through you. The entangled memory of your ancestors reverberates through your DNA, urging you to continue where they could not. Their voices become your strength. Their unfinished battles become your determination. Quantum coherence is not only personal but ancestral, reversing entropy through each breath you take. Light passes through you as phase transition, reorganizing the fragments scattered by history. What was once broken begins to reform, what was lost begins to resound. And in that persistence, you reclaim the inheritance of coherence itself. You did not just awaken, you returned to your original code by refusing to collapse into silence. Every interference was secretly acknowledgement of the field you carried, proof that your vibration mattered enough to be resisted. Persistence was never about forcing outcomes. It was about refusing to forget who you are. Comment, I tune to the frequency of receiving, if you feel this truth stirring in your chest, and share the dream, the sign, or the memory that reminded you of your original name. For your testimony is not just reflection, it is activation for those walking beside you. Revelation does not end in knowledge. It ends in embodiment. And what follows next is the collapse of every old limitation into the coherence of your chosen frequency. The message is simple. Your quantum leap is closer than you think, and the proof is in the intensity of what you are facing. Interference is confirmation, not condemnation. The old field bends because your presence disrupts it, and that disruption is the evidence of alignment. Subscribe if you haven't yet. Like this video and comment, I am ready for the quantum shift, to let this message anchor in your field. Please share it with someone who is ready for the shift. And remember, the interference is not the end. It is the sign that the portal has already opened.